Hello, everyone, and welcome to Think Yourself Healthy podcast. I'm your host, Heather Deranja. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey, everybody. On today's episode of Think Yourself Healthy, I have a very, very special guest, near and dear to my heart, Alyssa Deranja. Alyssa, please say hello.
Hello. I feel like this episode should totally have like a trigger warning, just because we're going to be talking about a lot of real, raw, vulnerable emotions, stories, and things that many people can be triggered by. So excited to be on today.
Me too. So Alyssa came to me and asked if we could record a podcast talking about our relationship. So I was more than honored and over the top, could not wait to have this conversation with her. So we have so much to share and talk about. It's like I don't even know where to get started. But Alyssa,
it'll be a good one.
Let's share with the audience what made you want to talk about the relationship that you and I have.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a little a background before I kind of dive into it. So my mother and I have definitely had a abnormal relationship. It has not been picture perfect. We have been, we lived at long distance for 5 years of my life. And in those 5 years, I was a preteen to a teenage woman. And now I am 20, about to be 21, going into womanhood. And I'm, looking back and reflecting and wanting to kind of share my story and our struggles, and
our triumphs.
Yes, exactly. And maybe there is a young woman out there who doesn't have a strong relationship with their mother, or their, doesn't have a motherly figure, or their motherly figure in their life, they have some type of hardships with, and you can kind of take a step back and look at it and from a different perspective. And I just kind of want to shed light onto that. And, let people know that no matter what you go through, there's always a way to overcome things. It's all about, perspective and growth and learning to be, compassionate. So
I love it. And I cannot wait. Just so for the audience, as a little girl growing up, I always idolized my mother. My mother was literally my best friend. I could tell her everything. Now, there were consequences that came with that. And so there was some fear sometimes around really, truly being able to be honest with her. Another thing is that with my relationship with my mother that I would get frustrated with is that she would withhold truth from me. And that used to bother me. So based off of the relationship I had with my own mother, when I became a young mother, I had decided that there were some things that I was going to definitely, embrace that my mother had taught me. My mother was an extremely loving and affectionate person, always said, I love you, always hugging, kissing. We have an extremely, extremely affectionate family. I'm so grateful for that there isn't fear to show affection. And so based off of my experience growing up, there were things that I wanted to embrace. And then there were things that I wanted to break generational patterns around. And I am so excited to be able to talk about these difficult things, because I think it's necessary in order for others, no matter where they're at in their life. You could be 65 and mom could be 85. You still have an opportunity to embrace and cultivate a healthy relationship. And so I hope that Alyssa and I are going to be able to share some of the things that we've done and overcome in order to strengthen and heal our relationship, but most importantly, break generational bonds, just those patterns, those generational unhealthy habits and patterns that, you know, we all adopt from the conditioning and the programming that we get from our environment. Monkey see, monkey do. And so I'm really excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. My relationship from the get-go with Alyssa as a mother was completely different than what I had experienced becoming a mother with my, you know, her sister, my first daughter, Hannah. And I literally had to learn how to reparent based off of Alyssa.
I promise I wasn't terrible.
No, not at all. So just so the audience knows, when I was pregnant with Alyssa, we had an ultrasound and we were told that we would be having a boy. So we literally had purchased all boy clothing, set the room up in Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with yellow and blue, and had picked out the name Timothy Jr., not by my choice. And so we were kind of set, you know, that we were having this little boy, we were going to have a girl, a boy, family was going to be complete. And then my due date came, my due date went. 2 weeks later, she still hasn't come.
I didn't want to come out of the room. I was very comfortable.
And I was very frustrated, doing anything and everything I could to try and force this child out of my body. I had to, I was going through a women's health clinic because I couldn't get health insurance to be able to have like a normal OBGYN. And so unfortunately, the doctor that was head of staff and in charge of my case was a real asshole. And he refused to induce me. I had a seizure with Alyssa about 3 weeks prior to when my due date was supposed to be. We were at a Rams football game and I seized from all of the noise and all of the excitement. It caused me to go and go into an induced seizure. And because I didn't have health insurance and was having to go through clinics, they refused to give me ultrasounds. They refused to check the baby, make sure everything was okay. So I was frightened. I was very fearful. So with this particular doctor, he refused to induce me, do anything to help accommodate bringing her into this world in a timely manner. So the nurse practitioner who was in charge of my case, the day that I had gone in 2 weeks post my due date, said to me, he's leaving, he's going to be off staff in a few hours, go home. I'm going to find a different doctor who will agree to induce you and we'll bring you back in. So that's exactly what happened. Doctor went home. She found another doctor who agreed to go ahead and induce me. They brought me in. They started me on the Pitocin and the medications to induce labor. And many hours later, it was almost midnight. The doctor came in to check my progress. And when she lifted up the blanket, there was just blood everywhere. And at that point, she knew something was wrong. She did a pelvic exam and said that the baby was in the process of the baby was breaking its neck, trying to come through the birth canal because its nose had got caught on my tilted pelvic bone. So they decided that in that moment, they were going to have to do a emergency cesarean because my blood pressure was dropping, the baby's blood pressure was dropping. It was a very scary situation, losing a lot of blood. So they rolled me in, they dosed me up with the morphine and then cut the baby out. And all I remember is looking at my husband and him looking at me going, "It's a girl." And I was like, "Say what? No, it can't be." And he was like, "No, it's a girl." Alyssa came a dry birth. She was so overdue that the amniotic fluid had just like disintegrated and she had swallowed a lot of what they called the meconium, which is where the baby is actually pooping in the sack, and this is very dangerous.
Yeah.
And
I didn't even
probably,
know this.
and
so
honestly,
this is news to me.
you know what? Now that we're having this conversation, this really makes a lot of sense with why you've had
Sinus issues.
such ear, sinus, skin issues,
Yeah.
digestive issues, most likely related to microbiome and what you experienced in those days.
Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. So needless to say, right after Alyssa was born, I ended up having a allergic reaction to the morphine, went into like complete shock. And the hospital that we delivered at, the nurses came in. I was literally in convulsions, shaking, and they were like, okay, well, here's your baby. It's time to breastfeed her. And by the way, we don't have a nursery, so she's going to be staying in here with you. And I was like, look, you just cut me wide open. I have no feeling from my neck down. And you want me to like take care of this child? I was like, I think you're going to take her to the nurse's station and allow me to get a little rest. So needless to say, the beginning of our relationship was a little bit chaotic, and Alyssa did not take very well to the breast. And so breastfeeding was really challenging. She was very colicky, did a lot of crying. She never slept. She was just eyes wide open all the time. Like, what the fuck did I come to this planet for?
Yeah.
What am I doing here? Who sent me? So anyway, it was just a lot of really different circumstances than what I had experienced with my first child. So I thought I knew what it was like to be a parent. And then Alyssa came here to teach me otherwise. So another fun fact, when Alyssa was a little girl, she loved to be dirty. Loved to be dirty.
We're going here.
Yes, she did. She
right.
loved to be dirty.
All right, Taylor,
And
you're
so,
listening.
and so my first, Hannah, my first baby, she was pristine. She couldn't stand getting dirty, wet. I always had to have multiple changes of clothing on me, no matter where we went, in the event that dear Hannah got dirty or wet. She had a clean, fresh outfit to change into at all times. And then I have Alyssa, where I'm used to always having a clean, pristine child. And then Alyssa's preferring to smear dirt on her face. And, she was just a totally different experience.
I was a tomboy.
It was a totally different experience. So, yeah, we definitely got, the beginning was definitely a different start.
So basically, to sum it up, me and my sister are very different. And, my mom's relationship with Hannah versus my relationship with my mom was always just polar opposite. Mm-hmm. And, growing up, I was more of a daddy's girl and Hannah was more of a mommy's girl. And when, before my parents' separation, I was close with my mom. I was very close with my mom, even though I tended to want to do more things, with my dad. And my dad worked all the time. So me and my mom spent a lot of time together because she was a stay-at-home mom. So, I grew up with her being very nurturing and allowing me to be a very creative and stimulated child, which I will forever thank, because she taught me, essential life, not essential life skills, but like essential brain development skills that really, I think, most parents nowadays are throwing iPads in front of children, and it's just different. And I'm not shaming anyone by no means, but I will say like it is different kinds, and it is crazy to see, I wonder the effects of the developments, but of that stuff on kids' brains. But back to kind of the main point I'm wanting to get at is, after my parents separated, my sister was much older than me, and I was still at a very crucial age. I think I was I was 8 years old when you separated, and I was about like 10 or 11 when you guys actually finalized your divorce. And my sister was going into high school, and she was always my mom's, pal. So Hannah watched, everything unfold where I was kind of kept in the dark. And I think for me, my mom did it out of, safe, trying to keep me safety and protecting me. But, at that age, I couldn't rationalize why my mom and sister were so upset And I just felt like the outsider, and my sister would tell me things, but I was in denial. I didn't want to believe it. I was too young for my brain to even like rationalize things. And, looking back at it now, I think that you guys doing that helped me out a lot in the long run, because it did help me to develop like a sense of individuality, if that makes any sense, like being, having my own beliefs versus like being told, because I mean, it was the same. My dad would tell me stuff too, but it allowed me to, kind of create my own belief system, but it also, wasn't always great, because I started assuming, maybe my mom just didn't want to like not tell me, or there was things that she's keeping secret from me, and I couldn't understand on why, she was going through the things she was, or how she was acting, because,
Yeah. Well, full transparency. I was in such a complete state of shock that my whole world had been turned upside down, and our family unit was no longer the family unit that I had always imagined it would have been. And I felt so lost. I completely disassociated and had a lot of difficulty with, I was so deep into my own sadness that I couldn't recognize and see the sadness within my own children, and really have the ability to hold the space that they needed me to help them ebb and flow through all of the challenges and all of the changes and uncertainty that we were facing at that time.
Yeah, no, totally. And, me being young, I couldn't understand that.
Mhm.
So I just thought you just didn't care.
Right?
You just didn't care. So, my brain was telling me my mom didn't love me, what, things that were important to me, my dance recitals, all of that stuff, school, my friends, because I had to move schools at that time. So my whole life changed. I mean, my whole life did a complete 360. And then at the same time, my dad had a girlfriend with a son that was, he was bringing into my life. My sister was rejecting them. So I was always
in the middle.
And I was always the more, I feel like, not grounded one, but I felt like I had to be the grounded one in order to keep, any normalness in the family. And but kind of back to what you were saying, Mom, like the disassociation, it affected me in a long-term way that now 20 going on 21 years old, my developed brain, still developing brain, can understand what happened. And I think there's a lot of parents and teenagers out here who are going to be able to relate to this. And even though they may not see it now, it's just something to be conscious of, and kind of, like you might hear this story and be like, oh, hey, this is very similar to what I'm feeling. And I could save you a lot of trauma and pain if, someone's just open to listen and understand. So, so me feeling like, my mom doesn't love me, I'm rejected, caused me to become very angry and bitter towards her. And, my mom wasn't in a place to receive any more emotional baggage, right?
Mhm.
Emotional distress.
Well, and at that time, not only, had I gone through the divorce, I had to move into my parents' house with the two girls. I was also trying to get a degree in school so that I would be able to financially support us. I was working as a bartender server nights and weekends. It was, I was just there. I was really lost and really I was in survival mode. I was just literally in survival mode, and the disassociation was the only thing that kept me going. And at that time, it was the first time in my life I had been single, and I never got to go out and party. I never went out to like bars and hanging out with friends. And So during that period when we were living at my parents,
And you were very young. You were what, 30?
I was 33.
32, yeah, 33.
33.
She was young, so young.
And so I did take advantage of being able to try and have a social life and escape all of the pain and suffering that I was doing. And Alyssa really felt that.
Yeah.
My absence, she really, really felt. And I'm so grateful for my mother and my mom really being able to pick up the pieces and show Alyssa the nurturing and love that I wasn't capable of giving her at that time.
I love my grandma.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, grandma. You're awesome. You already know. You already know how our bond is, how strong it is.
I am. I'm very grateful that my mom was there to help parent. And you know, one of my fondest memories was grandma encouraging you to start the cupcake business.
Oh, always. Yes. My grandma since day one has always told me I was going to be like a little entrepreneur. And so was it you or was it her who got me the cupcake basket? I think you got
I did the cupcake basket, but it was my mom who like would make you get in the kitchen and do the cooking.
So that's one thing I will say, like what I was saying before, like my mom always was giving me hobbies, right? And I'm still like this to this day. And I change hobbies like every 3 months. It's pretty bad. I need to fix that wound, whatever that is. But
it's okay. It's your inner child. She wants to play.
Yes. So
keep it alive, sister.
Yes. So my grandma and my mom always pursued me to start a cupcake business. And so I would spend my summers off of school just making different cupcake recipes and decorating them. And they were good.
They were so good.
I was a good baker. I was really good at 10 years old. I was whipping them up in the kitchen. And, there's little moments like that like I do love to look back on and remember like, okay, even though these were very hard times, you guys were very much still there for me. Like my family's support was there. I was, very grateful because I know it's not like that for every case. And I just think, whenever you're going, no matter what you're going through, still take a second to look around at who is supporting you, because I was lucky enough to have my grandma and my mom to her capacity, and my uncles and stuff like that. But in other situations, I know how it can feel like you're alone, but you're really not. And as much as maybe if it's not someone from your family, it can always just be a stranger that will say a kind word to you and encourage you, and just know that there's a lot of love to give in a world that seems like to be filled with negativity and hatred. There's always someone there that's going to support you. And I think my mother and I really want to spread that, nowadays is, we're here for people because we know what it's like. Absolutely. And we also know what it's like to have support. So, and how important it is.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have gotten through all of those times if it weren't for my family, my very close friends, my daughters. My daughters were really, my rock. They were my why. There were so many days I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go to work. I just wanted to cry. And my girls were always the why of why I had to keep pushing, no matter how desperate and bleak my circumstances felt in the moments. I wanted to show them that, they could be strong, they could be resilient, that they didn't have to always be tough. They could be vulnerable, they could be transparent, they were allowed to have feelings, all of those things. And I know for a fact that I am the most blessed mother alive because of the relationship that I have with both of my daughters. For me, the relationship that Alyssa and I now have is so sacred because for a very long time, I was very fearful that we would never have a relationship. In 2015, I was put into a position where I had to stop fighting for custody of her. And her and I had a conversation, and I was like, look, Alyssa, here's the circumstances. I'm out of money. I can't continue to fight this. You're being put in the middle. You're the one who is suffering. And I need to know what you want me to do. And in 2000,
2013?
yeah. So in
Okay.
2012, no, end of 2011, I had dated a guy. I was desperate to get out of my parents' basement and get the girls into a different living environment so that they could have, a
Yeah, I
home.
think it's important we talk about that because that was the beginning of me really rejecting you as my
Yes.
mother.
So I started dating a guy. He was the first relationship that I had gotten into, well, since I had been 17 after my ex-husband. And I did not know whom he truly was until we actually moved in with him. So during the year that him and I had dated.
And I think a lot of mothers out there can relate to this because I have a lot of friends with single mothers who have very similar, stories. So this is very important.
So as a mom, I got every other weekend free where the girls would go to their dads every other weekend. And then Wednesday nights, at first it was Monday and then it was Wednesdays.
Like a random night of the week.
They would stay with their father. So those would be the opportunities that I would get to go and spend one-on-one time with this guy. And so we had cultivated the relationship. I thought I knew him pretty well. And then we chose to move in together into a home. And
I mean,
shortly after, go ahead.
You would think he would have been a good guy.
Yeah.
He really played the part. I'm not gonna lie. He played the part. He fooled everyone.
Yes, he did. So shortly after we moved in together as a new family, the red flags started presenting, and I was in denial around what an alcoholic narcissist he actually was. And Alyssa kept trying to warn me, Mom, he's not a good guy. Mom.
I don't know what it is, but my
intuition.
Yeah, my intuition from such an early age. I mean, I can read people so easily, and it's not necessarily like a bad thing, but it's like, oh, I can tell you're a good person. I can tell you're not such a good person. And at first I thought this man we're speaking of was a good guy, but then I had to spend a lot of alone time with him when you would have to go to work.
School and work.
Yeah. And Hannah was at her boyfriend's house. And so it was just me, I was like 11 or 12 and this guy. And all he would do is I would go up to my room because I would feel extremely uncomfortable, and he would just blast Skrillex drinking wine boxes.
Yeah, no, he would fill red wine bottles and then fill it half with vodka, and we didn't know.
Oh God, I didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. That was like something we ended up finding because I didn't understand how he would get so intoxicated.
It was just wine boxes, and I remember being like 12 years old and thinking, "What is this dude on?" He's really that drunk off of wine boxes, like screaming to some, EDM music. And I was just like, all right, like, I guess this is life now. I don't know. And it just progressively got worse and weirder. And then he would get more verbally abusive. Yeah. And he was very, I pushed back. I didn't allow him to walk all over me. So I would fight back and I would argue with him and be like, I'm not going to let you tell me, sit here and tell me these things. That's not true. That's not true. And it would just anger him more. And I know he wouldn't have probably physically hurt me, but you could see like the anger in this man's eyes. It was so scary. I remember being on the staircase screaming at the top and him just being at the bottom, like ready to like rage. Yeah. And I was just like, geez. So I started telling my mom, like, I don't like him. I think this is not good. Like, I don't feel safe anymore. And my mom's response was I was being dramatic and I was not accepting. I didn't want her to be happy. And, all of the same stories that I think a lot of parents tell their children when they're in denial. And, looking back, I think you were just really in denial and couldn't, be there to like, maybe Alyssa is being honest, because I was very young. And so it's easy to kind of write it off as, oh, her parents just got divorced. She doesn't want to see them, see her mom happy and all this stuff. Granted, I was also very tough when it came to that stuff. I mean, I definitely, I was like, if any new man was coming into my mom's life, they had to get through me, right? Like I was the one that was going to be quizzing, interviewing them, asking 1,000 questions. Like you would have thought I would have pulled their social security card at 12 years old and ran, like I'm not even joking,
right?
And ran their name through a freaking criminal record. But
so there was one particular night where I was working at the bar and I got phone calls, multiple phone calls from Alyssa, crying, screaming, and then I'm getting phone calls from him. We can't use names.
Yes.
From him, and he's like, your daughter is just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just going, what the hell is going on? I'm just trying to work. I'm trying to make money so I could pay the bills. It was snowing. Like it was just an absolute nightmare.
I'll never forget this.
I just remember being absolutely heartbroken because when I came home to an empty home with no more Alyssa there. She had called her father, and I'll let you kind of take it from
no, I'll never forget this. So to give a little background onto what had happened, I'm not going to get into the full story because, it's pretty, it's a long story, but basically I had my best friend of my childhood. I mean, my best friend who had seen, she'd been there since I was like 6 years old over, and we wanted to make coffee because we were like 12. You just finally started letting me drink coffee. And so, we're like, okay, let's, make coffee with some French vanilla creamer, right? It was snowing. I was like, this will be so nice.
And it was late at night. It was like 8 o'clock.
No, it was 6. I'll never forget because it was 6 p.m. on a Saturday. And that's why I was like, oh, it's totally okay. Like it's Saturday, like we're fine. So I go in the kitchen and I'm ready to start making it. And this man comes in, and can we give him a nickname?
Sure.
Can we call him, what's a good nickname for him? Can we call him Skrillex?
Skrillex.
Okay, we're gonna call him Skrillex. So Skrillex comes into the kitchen and he is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm making me and my friend coffee. And he's like, no, you're not. And here's the thing. There's a difference in being, respectful and being, a step figure in a child's life and kind of, advising them or guiding them on why, they shouldn't be doing something. And then there's being a drunk asshole who is barking at a 12-year-old girl in front of her girlfriend who never comes over and basically saying, like just yelling, like just an immediate
embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Yeah. And not only that, when you freaking come at me with fire, I'm gonna come back. I have a moon in Aries. I'm gonna come back with you with fire. Like I was not putting up with that. And so it turned into an immediate fight, scream fest of me telling him he was an a-hole and I didn't respect him because he didn't respect me. And him telling me I was a spoiled brat and I did not deserve to live there. And all of these stories on why, I'm going to have so much trouble growing up and I'm not going to be, successful in life and, just trying to completely defeat a young girl. And so me and my friend decide we're going to go outside because it's getting too heated. And I'm like, we literally cannot be in this household. It's time to go outside. So we're in, the garage, and Skrillex had bought me this little motor scooter. Yeah, so he bought me this motor scooter or like I guess like a moped thing. Yeah. I don't know what to call it. Yeah. And and it's snowing, like it is like inches are on the ground. And so he comes in the garage, starts yelling at us, screaming at us. I'm on the phone with my dad hears him screaming at us. So my dad's like, you need to walk away. So what do? I get the moped and I tell my friend, hop on. So we start driving, and I'm not joking. I was probably going like 5 miles per hour, but I thought I was on a mission. I was like, we're going back, like we're getting away. And so he's freaking out. Skrillex is like being like, you need to get back here. It's snowing. And like, we were not in, snow attire. Like we could have easily
froze to death.
Yes. And keep in mind, we were like 11, 12 years old, like going into 6th grade. We were young. And so he's arguing. My dad's on the phone with me. My dad's like, I'm coming there and I'm getting you guys. And I think, it's time you move in with me. And I'm like, I agree. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I go back. I have enough courage to go back, pack my things while Skrillex is screaming still. And all of a sudden, me and my friend hear this loud like thump. And Skrillex is outside throwing that moped in the front yard. I don't know if you remember this. He threw my scooter because he bought it for me because he was so mad that he bought it for me.
Wow.
He chucked it in the front yard. Yeah. And I mean, if we're not talk about trauma, I feel bad. I feel more bad for my friend at this point because she she had no idea. She came from a very healthy family, so she had no idea. And anyways, so my dad ends up coming. I have all my stuff packed, and I was like, this is it. And you know, I knew that this was really going to impact my mom and I's relationship because in this moment, it was I'm choosing dad's side, right? That's how I viewed it. Was I'm choosing dad's side, even though that's not what was really going on. What really was going on was I was protecting myself to emotional and verbal abuse, and my dad just my dad loves me and wanted make sure I was safe, and my mom just was not there. You weren't there. You didn't understand. And
well, and one thing that at that time Alyssa didn't have the capability of understanding was not only was she being subjected to the narcissistic emotional abuse, but so was I. And in this particular relationship, there was a lot of sexual abuse that I was enduring, and I was in such a low place. I couldn't believe that I had gotten myself in this situation with this individual whom was way worse than I ever anticipated I would have gotten together with. And it was just a really bad situation. And shortly after that happened with Alyssa, a lot of things continued to happen, and I got to a point where I could no longer just keep the wool over my eyes and had to see what was in front of me, and that this was a no good person in a very, very dangerous situation to be in. And I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer, and the day after I had my surgery, I moved my oldest daughter, and I physically moved ourselves out of that house and into an apartment. And I look back and I think to myself, God, I don't know how I had the strength to carry all of that furniture up all those flights.
I mean, we're talking
stairs.
Couches, the bed, right?
Yeah, everything. I don't know how, but that was determination and will to get us into a better, healthier situation.
Today's episode is brought to you by Organifi. Organifi is a line of organic superfood blends that offer plant-based nutrition made with high-quality ingredients. Most of us could use a little more energy in our day, but caffeine can only do so much. At some point, we have to look at root causes of our fatigue. Organifi creates delicious superfood blends that address both of these problems. They use adaptogenic herbs and mushrooms to help balance cortisol levels associated with stress, and they make it easier to add more nutrients into your day. You can experience Organifi's high-quality superfoods without breaking the bank. Go to www.organifi.com/Heather20 and use code Heather20 for 20% off your order.
Hannah and I moved into an apartment. Alyssa would come over and visit, and it was a lot of toxicity. It was a lot of her harboring anger and resentment towards me feeling so hurt, so abandoned, so rejected. Because in my world, everything I was trying to do was
felt like you were the victim.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I was definitely being victimized. How could my ex do this to me? How could this guy Skrillex do this to me? And how could my daughter abandon me in such a time of emotional low and desperation? And so, God, the shit that we went through. My oldest daughter at the time was in a really, really toxic relationship, and that was a whole nother situation. I remember coming home from work one night, my whole front door being completely ripped off the hinges. Every single thing in my home was destroyed. I didn't have a lot of money. I was working my ass off just to try and provide to keep a roof over our head. And I had bought us a TV. Do you remember I bought us a TV with a paycheck that I had worked really, really hard for. And I came home and that TV was completely fucking shattered. And all of our pictures had knives like scraped through them. And
we're talking, I mean, some psychopath.
It was psychotic.
Yeah.
And I will never forget a couple of days later. So I that evening I had to call the police and, do the whole investigation. And I knew exactly who had done it.
Yeah, we all did.
We all knew who had done it. And a couple of days later, I remember being in my closet, putting a clothing on, and I put this shirt on that had never been worn, and it smelled like urine. And I was like, what the heck? And then that's when I realized that they had literally urinated on every single article of clothing in my closet. I had never felt more violated, defiled. Like I was just, it was literally just one thing after another. It felt like it was never ending. And then that led me into another extremely toxic relationship, probably the worst of them all. And Alyssa saw immediately, she knew that this guy was absolutely no good. What are we going to call this one?
Plenty of fish.
Plenty of fish. That is too perfect.
Plenty of fish, or we could call them fish, plenty, either or.
POF.
Yeah.
Plenty of fish.
Plenty of
is
fish.
So perfect.
Oh, I hope.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Alyssa knew. Hannah, she was more warm and welcoming to this other one, to Plenty of fish.
Yeah.
He was extremely attractive, very charismatic, had a really charming personality, but behind closed doors, he was literally just evil, pure evil.
Not a word I think that is appropriate I can use on this podcast, but when I say, like, if there's any person that's walking around with like an actual demon inside them, it's him. Like, and I'm not like a very, I hate to like use stuff like that, but it's true. Like, that just goes to show how evil and hurt this man is,
Yeah. So he subjected me to a lot of pain. And during that time, he was putting me in a position where he was making me choose between spending time with my children and spending time with him. And he would literally trap me for hours and abuse me literally physically abuse me so that I could not leave and get home to my children like I needed to. And I would come home and I would try to hide black eyes, but Alyssa knew. Alyssa knew. She called me out. I would deny. I would lie about it. It was literally.
I threatened to chase him with a baseball bat, by the way, guys. When I was like 13 years old, he came over. And I knew he was hurting my mom. I mean, I was not stupid. I had been through so much at that point that I was not stupid. Mm-hmm. And it hurt me more that she was lying. Because again, back to like when my parents were separating, she kept this truth from me. And so I was like, she just lies to me. She doesn't want me to know. Like, she doesn't want me to be, a part of, her, like, I just felt rejected.
Right.
And, but this guy came around, and I remember looking him straight in the eyes and telling him, if he doesn't leave, I'm going to get the baseball bat out of the garage and chase him out of the house with it. He was scared of me. I swear that man he was scared of me.
I agree. I think that if there was anyone that did kind of make him go, it was definitely you.
Yeah, he should have been, because he was evil. I mean, he put my mom through the ringer, literally put her through the ringer. Caused me to completely run away from that household and not want a relationship with my mom at all. So while my mom's going through actual physical, emotional, verbal abuse, I completely just disconnected from her. And that's a moment in my life that I remember being like, I don't want a relationship.
Right.
I don't want a relationship with her. I'm getting hurt too much. I don't want a relationship. And
from my perspective, with all of the pain and suffering, and then the feeling of abandonment and rejection from my own daughter, it only pushed me even more into that relationship, into the toxicity, because that's what I truly, at the core of my being, thought that I deserved. Nothing but pain, nothing but abuse, nothing but suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's crazy to look back on, because I think there's a lot of people, so many people, like people that I know that are in the same relationship, marriage, situationship, whatever it is. And it sucks because it took me many years to understand. And now that, I look at it and it's like, wow, like how broken we all were.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how, we
What we
chose-
accepted,
Yeah.
what we accepted in
know.
our life. And in May of 2015 is when I finally was able to escape the torture of that relationship. And at that point, Alyssa and I had started to redevelop a
Mhm.
relationship, but we were still going through the
And-
official court battle.
And also at that time, I was 14, by the way. I was not 15. I know I was 14 for a fact. I was going through a lot of hormonal changes, I guess, being a preteen. I mean, I was mean. I was a mean girl. I was not a happy girl. I quit all of my sports. I quit doing all the things that used to make me happy.
Mhm.
And I just decided that my fate was going to be trouble, because that's all I was told for the last, 3 years of my life.
So during that period, Alyssa was coming over and she would stay weekends. And actually, I think we were pretty much splitting custody.
Yeah, it was split. It was like,
Yeah.
I would stay 1 week,
Yeah.
stay 1 week. It was split.
Yeah. And again, I was still having to work full time as a dietitian. At this point, I'm bartending, and I was working 6 days a week. Actually, 7 days
You
a
were
week.
working all the time.
7 days a week. I was working 7 days a week. Most of the time, it was anywhere from like 12 to 16-hour days. I was literally exhausted. And then I would come home and Alyssa would have boys over, and then I would freak out. And so there was a lot of conflict. And then,
But the thing is I was like doing it because I just gave zero fucks.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely got to that point where I mentally checked out and was like, I don't respect anything. I don't respect my mom. I don't. And I see this pattern all the time when I see like even, my younger friend or my siblings younger friend, or oh my gosh, my friend's younger siblings and
cousins
and you go through so much trauma that you literally lose respect for everything, because
Absolutely.
What's the point,
Right.
And that's where I was like,
Right.
I don't care, you can't do anything more to me
Right.
at that point.
Right.
So
and for me, that was probably when I turned 15,
yeah.
and started
Mhm.
turning to drugs. That was
Yeah.
when I just said, fuck it.
Yeah.
And that's after I had my mom put me in the hospital because she found out I was pulling out my hair, and that was my coping mechanism at that time. So yeah,
Yeah.
we were in very similar situations. But long story short, that October, I ended up having to give up custody of Alyssa, and she chose to live with her dad. And then my oldest daughter was in a really, really toxic relationship. I knew that she was either going to end up dead or in jail. The police were coming literally. It was every day.
I was getting involved in it.
It was such a bad, it was just such bad circumstances. I remember literally being at work, being at home, and knock, knock, it's the cops. My house was constantly getting vandalized. My vehicles, people who would come to visit us, their vehicles would get vandalized. It was just so much toxicity. And Hannah was in such a low place.
Yeah.
She really was just losing herself. And I saw the writing on the wall and knew where her fate was headed if something significant did not shift.
To escapism very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was going down,
So that's when I had to make the decision to move as far away as possible and get a second chance at starting life. And I will never forget the day I went and picked you up and I was
Mhm.
like, look, here's the situation, to California.
Mhm.
And I think that you were in complete shock because that previous October, right before we had made the decision that you were going to live with your dad, I had said, look, there's a very good chance that I'm not going to stay in Missouri. And I think that you didn't believe me. I
Yeah.
think you thought I was just,
No, I didn't.
manipulating you or
Yeah.
something.
You trying to get me to live with you.
Right. And so anyway,
I to share my, what I went through. So, my mom told me that she was moving to California. She was selling everything and she was going to just make it work. And I literally had just finally felt like I was going to get some stability. And I had moved schools every year up until this point. I'm not joking.
post-divorce.
Yes, every single year, different school. Well, it was the same schools, but back and forth, back and
Mhm.
forth. So I was that kid that was just always bounced back between two different school districts, So if one thing didn't work out, I could run to the other school, it wasn't good. And I saw this as an opportunity to kind of change and create some sort of stability in my life. And that's all I really wanted at the end of the day. And so when my mom told me that, I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that again. I can't go halfway across the country at 15 years old and out of all the places, California. And it sounds like a dream to many, but to me, I was so aware of all of the shit that I had to work through that I couldn't be a normal 15-year-old moving schools. I would have ended up just going, I think I would have ended up probably either pregnant or completely on drugs. Like there was no way I would have came out here and been okay. And, at that time, I think my mom thought I was doing it to be mean, but I'm still stand by that was the best decision I could have ever made for myself. And, my dad was still drinking. Actually, no, he was in the hospital because his liver was failing. So I was completely alone. I mean, you left and then my dad's in the hospital fighting for his life and I was left alone every day for, my first year of high school. And it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be independent, but it also gave me a lot of, it made me sit with my trauma. And so I developed a lot of mental health issues and anxiety. And it got to the point where I did try to end my life. And I'll never forget that because I called my sister and she couldn't be there for me. And I was like, I've had enough, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. My life is shit. And it's so sad because life is so beautiful. And I think that there were many beautiful moments as much as we're talking about this negativity. There was good times. My childhood was not complete shit. It was just, everyone has their own story. Mine just was, rough around the edges for a few of those chapters, but I ended up, making that decision and I was forced to go to therapy. And I will forever promote going to therapy, going and seeing someone, seeking out a counselor. But previously, me and you tried it.
Yeah.
We tried it and it just didn't work, and I think for most people, and this is just my personal opinion, you got to do your own therapy before you can bring in the person that you need the therapy with, right?
Yeah.
And we've never done it since then.
Yeah.
But because I did that therapy, she taught me so much, on a professional level about what really my brain was going through, the things that I experienced and how to deal with my emotions. And, I do feel like I'm very emotionally mature now because of that. And I think that's where a lot of kids, and not kids, but young adults, like kids my age, 20 to 25-year-olds, where I see, they completely lack that emotional maturity. And that's why I think everyone seeks that, hookup culture, playing the games, because no one has done that work on themselves.
Right.
And you were always an advocate for it, though. You were always
100%. I had Hannah in therapy.
Yeah.
I was seeking therapy myself. Therapy was not something that I was exposed to for my traumas growing up through childhood. I will never forget my therapist saying, so your family clearly doesn't know boundaries.
Yes.
And I was like, what the fuck's a boundary? Like, what is that? But
it's true though. And that's something like even to this day I'm learning with our family is boundaries. And
so let's fast forward. So, one other thing I want to mention about that was you did blame me. And, you know, I will never forget the phone call saying this is because this is your fault.
I don't think it was you, though.
Well, you did not say that. No, you didn't say that to me. I was going
to say, I definitely.
Someone else said that to me, but they were saying that you were saying that it was the reason why. So I was harboring a lot of shame and guilt. I remember people, you know, they'd be like, oh, do you have children? And I'd say, yes, I have 2 daughters. And then they would start questioning me. And I remember the shame and guilt that I would feel about saying, well, one of my daughters is here and the other one's in Missouri. And they would just give me this look of disapproval. And I, you know,
like confusion
and like, I just, and so
no one wants to ever feel like, you know, their decisions are looked from, you know, because no one knows the story.
So,
you know?
I really
be compassionate.
So I really, really harbored a lot of shame and guilt and really beat myself up. And I ended up getting into the 3rd relationship post-divorce. And this one I thought for sure was by far the healthiest one yet. I had no idea that this was like a silent but deadly situation. And in 2018, we move into the dream home in Monarch Beach, and you know, but anyway, you know, we can literally see the ocean from the backyard, have the pool in the backyard, this beautiful home. And Alyssa
was it Michelob that we would drink?
Michelob?
Yeah, Michelob.
I don't remember. No, wasn't it? It was Corona.
It was Corona.
Yeah, it was so we're calling him Corona.
Yeah, we could call him Corona.
Not to be confused with COVID.
Yes.
Corona,
the
beer. Yeah. So Corona was literally isolating me, stripping away all of my independence, and literally just I was just dying, literally dying. And so I was extremely hopeful because I thought that when Alyssa came out,
I was 16.
saw the situation, that she would be enticed to want to come and live with me. And, you know,
let me bring a friend.
And we would have this opportunity to start over with our relationship. And things went way bad.
So they went really good until they went really bad. It was like it was the perfect visit. And then my friend left and then things just went shit. So I don't even remember. I remember what it was.
I said, I want to spend some time with you, some alone time, just one-on-one. Can we go to the beach?
Yeah.
We get in the car. We weren't even pulled out of the street. And it was just at each other's throats.
I remember though why I remember the discussion. It was over nutrition Vixen. It was over because I was getting bullied at school. Not necessarily bullied, but guys, obviously my mom is an attractive young mother. So I got all of the milk jokes, you know, everything you can think of, but she branded herself as Nutrition Vixen. I don't know if you were aware, but there was a famous porn star at that time.
No, definitely not aware.
Okay, so there was a famous porn star at the time that went by something Vixen. And I got so much heat for it. And I was already in such a weird place with my mom that I was like, great, now I'm the weird girl, you know, with the hot mom that could be a porn star. And no one understands what the hell happened in my life. And so she asked me about your business. And I was in DECA at this time. So I was really, you know, pushing myself into the business classes in my school. And so you were trying to connect with me. And I saw this as an opportunity to let loose onto the things that I had been harboring. Ooh. And it got bad.
It got so bad that literally we were screaming.
We were screaming at each other.
Like screaming at the top of our lungs. And we got back to the house and Corona was like, what the heck is going on? And he tried to intervene and he was like, this is toxic. He's like, you guys are psycho.
Well, I was so mean. Like, I remember him. I'm pretty sure I told him to fuck off.
You did, yeah.
I was like, get the fuck out.
So she went in and started packing her bags and she's like, I'm out of here. And I was so upset because I felt so used, so taken advantage of. Like I had really tried to plan.
I went and took the purse too. I was mean.
I really felt like completely heartbroken and just devastated. And so as she was packing her bags and I recognized that there was no convincing her otherwise, that this was an unsalvageable situation at this point.
Yeah.
You ended up calling your dad, changing the air flight.
No, what happened?
No, you went to your sister's?
I went to Hannah's apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, because Hannah was working and I called Hannah and I told her, hey, like me and mom got into a bad fight. Hannah knew. Hannah was always kind of like, she saw both sides to everything. So she was like, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to order you an Uber, I'm pretty sure. She ordered me an Uber and they picked me up and took me to her apartment. And then I ended up sleeping with her or staying there with her roommate and talking to her roommate about everything. And I remember like feeling so much guilt while I was talking to her roommate because I was like, wow, I really overreacted. Like this was not how this was supposed to go.
Yeah, it was bad.
And I think you were texting me and it wasn't helping the situation.
I was just devastated.
Yeah.
So Alyssa left and with no
goodbye.
No nothing. I was just absolutely heartbroken. And I had the expectation that our relationship had forever been severed and that there was no point of return at this point. I slipped into a very, very terrible, terrible depression. And so combination of the emotional abuse that I was getting. And when I say emotional abuse, it was the lack of emotion. Yeah. I was literally just being isolated and manipulated through financial means. And ultimately I became very suicidal. Like my suicidal ideations were so significant. I remember sitting at the table and just thinking about going up to the bathroom to slit my wrist and bleed out. And instead this voice in my head said, go outside. And I will never forget taking those steps outside. And the further I got away from the house, the deeper I could breathe, the more alive I felt, and then called a girlfriend. Long story short, I ended up going back to St. Louis. I had hit rock bottom once again, let go of my business, had nowhere to live, had no money to my name, had no relationship with my daughter. I was just in the worst place of my life at that point. So I went back to St. Louis and by surprise, Alyssa greeted me.
Well, I was in therapy at that time, like hardcore therapy.
Yeah, you were the one that I remember just being so astonished because it was my birthday. I flew in, it was on my birthday, and you came over and you were like, look, let's forget about all she was like, we can't forget about it. We're going to have to talk about it, but I love you. And I want to have a relationship with you. And from that moment on, our lives completely changed. Our relationship completely changed. And I told her.
Well, for me, it was the first time I felt like you really were making an effort, even though beforehand you were, but it was like you were genuinely emotionally present to make an effort and connect with me. And because I think before, like, as we have talked about the patterns of the men that were in the lives and the toxic relationships, it was like, this is my mom. This is Raw. This is Heather. This is my mom. And she needs me. And I need her as much as she needs me, if not more.
Also, at that time, another thing happened that was really, really significant. I had a friend that I had worked with, and she had two daughters that were the same ages as my daughters. And her and I had been through such parallel situations, and our children had been through very parallel situations. They went to school together, and this particular friend was like literally just the light of life. She was such a beautiful, joyful, bend over backwards, shirt off her back. And silently, she had also been struggling like I had been, but she chose to take her life. And at that time, one of her daughters was pregnant with what would have been her first grandchild. And I remember lying in that bed thinking to myself, oh my God, that could have been me. Like I could have made that decision that would have forever impacted them more than what decisions we had already made. And I think that for me, that was really the surrender, the point where I knew I couldn't run, I couldn't be the victim anymore, that the only common denominator in all of the situations was me, and that I had to take the mirror and look at myself and do the work. And I had to heal the traumas, and I had to heal the core wounds of the abandonment and the rejection and the not feeling worthy and deserving. And at that point, that's when Alyssa and I chose that we were going to let go of all of the past hurts, and that we were going to talk through everything. And then I ended up going up to Northern California, and you flew out, and we had the most magical time.
It was a very healing trip.
It was literally Mount Shasta is the most healing place.
Well, it was my 18th birthday. And so you really honed in on me becoming a woman and letting my, all of the shit that we had been through only make me a strong woman, and not let it get to me, and how there's so much resources out there to become a healed and happy person. And that's exactly what you did. I mean, you showed me the ropes, and it was just so magical. Like I remember opening up my gifts and knowing that for the first time, it wasn't materialistic items. Granted, it was, but it was
sentimental.
Heartfelt, and things that I still have with me to this day, so. And she was a different person. I mean, you were up there for how many months when I got there? A few?
I had been up there for right at 1 month at
1
that
month?
point.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. It was the first time in my entire life where I was forced to be with just myself.
Yeah.
Since I had been a young child, I had always shared bedrooms with my siblings. And then I left home at 17, moved in with your father, and then had Hannah by 19. And so for my whole life, I had never been by myself.
Yeah.
And this was literally the first time I had chosen to create that space so that I would be forced to be by myself and have to ebb and flow through all of those feelings and discover who the hell I was and what I actually wanted for life and for my relationship with my children and my, everyone in my family and friends. And in that 4 weeks, the amount of transmuting toxicity and healing wounds, I mean, so much happened. I cannot express how beautiful giving myself that time, how healing it truly, truly was.
Yeah. And it was in a very high
energetic vibrational space. Anyone want to heal? You take a trip up to Mount Shasta. I dare you to step foot on that ground. It will literally suck the toxicity out of you.
I remember feeling healed. And it's also the same, that's where the Stand By Me bridge was, right? Yeah, that was so cool to me. But sorry, side note. But no, that was I think the first time we spent alone time together. And it was like, okay, this is what our relationship could be like since I was 8 years old, 10 years later, 10 years later, a whole decade later.
Yeah.
It was, okay, I'm now a woman and I want to have my mother in my life. I couldn't. If you look back when I look back, when I didn't have you in my life, I was hurting so bad. I mean, I say I was a mean girl. I actually was not mean to like others at my school. I was fairly nice, but I was a mean girl in the sense of I had a lot of hurt in my heart that if I were to get close to a lot of people, I only felt like I would have hurt them.
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, that was the time that I remember like, okay, this is not my fate. This is me becoming a better person and living a life that I know I am deserving of. Because I did remember me and my mom having good moments together. And it was crazy because like even now, like I get flashbacks of like my childhood that I like had completely like forgotten about, right?
Well, and I think it's pretty common because I think it's like
It's an emotional response, or
it's a protection.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
literally a protection. And I remember a couple of Christmas ago when we had gotten out all the photo albums and we were flipping through, our lives when we were a family. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't remember any of this. I had literally blocked it all out as a way to protect myself because I had so disassociated. And so, yeah, it's like, wow.
Well, I think a lot of people, to me, I look at it and I see so many people that I talk to on a daily basis and they have no idea that they're, disassociated,
Mhm.
or they're, they talk about not remembering stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, the reality is you've probably been through some things that have made you want to protect yourself.
Right.
So, after that trip, I ended up going back home, and I do remember coming home and everyone being like, "Wow, you just seem so happy." And my cup was filled. I felt like for the first time, I was like, me and my mom had a good relationship. Like, you came out there and spent time with me, when I started CAPS,
Mhm.
and you were there to support me through that, which was huge because I really felt like, during my childhood, you couldn't be there for my sports and stuff. And
We had
so,
like that 3 to 4 months before I left.
Yeah. There was 3 to 4 months of my mom just supporting me while I was pursuing, I guess I got placed in a program that advanced me from high school into working in the actual workforce. And I was a project manager for a marketing campaign for my city. So, and working with college students at the time. So I really needed that support because for the first time in my life, I actually felt like I mattered, which really is so sad because I know that I do. No matter what I'm doing, I don't need to be doing something to know that I'm important or need that validation. And that's on self-love and self-growth, everyone. But but at that time, this was really important to me. And so my mom was there and wanted to go to everything. I think I hurt your feelings a few times though, because I was like, "Mom, you can't go." Like there were some events like you really can't go. But she just wanted to be there. And I was like, this is what it's like, to have a mother and someone to be there for you. And I think all along you wanted to, my whole life you just couldn't because of the trauma and the emotional dissociation.
And there was also the piece of you that wouldn't let me.
Yes, and me being completely stubborn.
That brings up something that was a conversation that you and I had that day, that everything went south when you were in California. And one of the things that Alyssa had said to me is, ask anyone. Anyone will tell you that you love Hannah more than you love me. And I was like, well, I can understand how people might perceive that I love Hannah more than I love you. And here's why. And the reality is that Hannah allowed for me to be very loving and affectionate. Mm-hmm. Hannah constantly would let me love all over her and show affection to her. And Alyssa would not. From very, very early on in her life, she did not want to be cuddled. She didn't want to be hugged. She didn't want to be kissed. So it was constantly feeling of rejection from her that she wouldn't receive the love I had to offer. And being that one of my love languages is showing affection. And being a child,
words of affirmation and acts of service. So
and so being a child who
so completely different.
suffered their own abandonment and rejection. For me, I got my self-worth through loving others and being able to show them that love. And Alyssa would not receive it. However, Hannah did. And so from a visual, people thought that Hannah and I had this, amazing relationship and that I only loved Hannah. But that wasn't the truth. The truth is that Alyssa just didn't allow for me to express my love language to her. And I didn't really know what Alyssa's love language was in order to affirm and, give her that secure attachment.
I was a very odd child though. Like, I feel like, most kids do want affection, and I don't have there are times where I thought about maybe I had some social issues, but reality is I'm just a very, I'm an introverted person who's taught myself to be an extrovert, right? Like, at the end of the day, I like to be alone. I like to have my space. I'm very private in that, case, where my sister's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And
well, Hannah and I share very similar personality characteristics.
Yes, exactly. And so, I just don't think you were used to that.
Well, even to this day, Hannah will come over and the very first thing she will do at 25 years old is cuddle up on her mama's lap. Yeah. Mama, I need a hug. You better show me some love. Yeah. Where's my attention?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So
to that point, Alyssa has become extremely open and receiving of affection over the last 3 years.
Yes. 100%.
And initially, when Alyssa did become more open, she would actually pursue it from me. And at first it felt very uncomfortable. I was like, what's happening here? She was wanting a hug and she's not letting me go. Like I was having a hard time with receiving it because it just felt so different than what we had
was
ever.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was awkward. I was like, oh my God, here's my child. I want to love her. I want to hold her. I want to be able to embrace the hug. But because there had been so much rejection from that part, it didn't feel safe. And consistently through us trying and trying, it's gotten to a point, where we have the ability.
No, and that's one thing I'm so grateful for, like being out here and just developing this relationship with my mom has taught me to be more affectionate and nurturing, because I am definitely someone who prefers words of affirmation is, I think, my biggest love language, which really sucks because actions are everything. And people say a lot of things out here, or not out here, but just in general. But yeah, so being, closer to my mom and having a relationship, it's taught me a lot about being nurturing and affectionate and receiving love. I haven't been in a lot of relationships. I'm young and I don't want to be, but one thing my mom is really teaching me is myself, self-worth and self-love. Like, I feel like since moving out here, I'm almost overloaded with the amount of love that I have to give in the best ways possible. And so she has taught me to, instead of seek for someone that may not be the person that's deserving of this love, to give it back to myself.
Yes.
And I think it's so important that her audiences know that not only does she practice what she preaches, but, I am a true example of my mom's knowledge and guidance. And, that's one thing that I am huge on. Like, if any of my friends are listening, or just people who may follow me or not, I truly believe, that it all starts within. And, my mom is the reason why I think I have turned into such a radiant person to this day. I moved to California a year ago, so I've been here with my mom for about a year, and
we had the best bonding time because we got to share a bedroom in a long time.
And my mom flew out to Missouri, moved me out. We completely road tripped across the nation.
That's such a good time.
I know, but to me, it was all my first experiences. I had literally only been to Missouri, Florida, and North Carolina when I was young, other than Illinois and weird random states. So it was my first time experiencing life as a young ambitious woman, and having my mom next to me, supporting me and letting me know that I am smart and I'm resilient and I'm going to be able to achieve it was huge. I mean, she is my biggest supporter. I know, I'm serious. I love you so much.
I love you.
I love you so much. And it's just,
I'm so grateful for the trials and the tribulations that we have been through and our ability to overcome.
Yes.
For me, being a mother was literally the greatest gift and joy. Being a mother taught me how to love myself, how to be proud of myself. It taught me that I had value, that I was needed, that all of the things that I didn't believe, it helped me understand. And I've always been an extremely, I'd like to say, my divine feminine, a very creative.
You are very feminine, and
nurturing.
it rubs your energy. I absorb that energy, like I feel like we are two peas in a pod in that way.
Absolutely. And so when my daughters were little girls, I was very sentimental and really went above and beyond to try and make their life experiences special ones.
Yeah.
And I can remember baking cakes, and you were just hand doing everything to try and really.
I mean, you painted our whole entire playroom. We had murals of Winnie the Pooh and princesses. I had the dream room growing up, guys. Dream room. I mean, my mom hand painted castles. I would dream about going into this castle that was painted on my wall and being a ballerina. Like I had that very ideal.
During the summers, every day we literally had an adventure.
Yes.
Every day was an adventure. Every day was about learning and growing. And so when the divorce happened and everything that we had ever known was rocked, it really it was hard.
Yeah.
It was just really hard.
I mean,
but I recognize that, everything happens for a reason. And if we would not have gone through all of these things, we probably would not be the people that we are here today.
Absolutely not. I totally, that is the one thing when people ask me all the time, oh, like how did your parents divorce? Or, my mom recently just got remarried.
I got married and the girls got to walk me down the aisle.
My mom recently just got remarried, and like people are always like fishing for, I feel like, negative answers, because people want to relate and know that, trauma bond and
right.
Which I think is a lot of the world today. That's how they relate and connect, is through trauma bonding, because there's so much of it out there.
Absolutely.
That I love being able to say, I don't, I would not change a single thing about it. Everything that I went through, all of the relationships, to us screaming and fighting at each other. I mean, I genuinely believe that it has built so much character, so much emotional maturity, and being strong. Like, I mean, and not only being strong, but being okay with being vulnerable, being okay with saying, I need help.
Yes.
I need to go get therapy. I need to be, seeked after for professional help because I am not okay.
Or just being able to say, I need you.
Yes.
I need you to acknowledge me. I need you to stop what you're doing and hold the space for me right now.
And that's where our relationship is at, not even today, but I feel like it'll always be there, that I need you. That's a huge aspect of our relationship. But just being open, and, my mom always taught my sister and I to be very truthful. I mean, like my mom was saying that sometimes we do need boundaries, but for the most part, like, I know I can go and tell my mom anything. And that is so rare. I mean, I have so many girlfriends who are like, I can't believe you told your mom that. I'm like, hell yeah, I did. I'm like, if not, she's going to find out no matter what. So I don't feel like explaining later. I'd rather her just know now. And that's so important. I'm totally going to take that same parenting skill whenever I am going to be a mother, and, hold space for my children, to let them know that, hey, you are loved and you are safe, and, no matter what you go through, you're not going to be shamed.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that is definitely an important part, because no matter how horrible something is that your child has to tell you that you really don't want to have to hear, it's important that you don't judge, that you don't criticize, that you just hold that space, that you are there to support them and assure them that, no matter how dire the situation is, this too shall pass. This is happening for you. It is not happening to you. That we get 100%. To make choices. And Alyssa and I we chose to help ourselves in order to help our relationship. And through the personal responsibility and accountability that we took for our own emotional health and our traumas and our wounds, we've been able to get to a point where we have the most beautiful, amazing relationship.
Cherish our relationship so much, Mom.
Same. I mean, I feel so blessed when my two daughters walked me down the aisle and were there to help celebrate with me this amazing, magnificent man that has come into our lives. And it was just such a beautiful, the whole experience was just magical.
I struggled giving you away for all the right reasons, because I've seen you go through so many different phases of your life, and it was like, this one's it, she's done it. She's gone through all of this. Like, this is it for her. And it's a bittersweet feeling when one chapter of a book has officially came to end, but it's only the beginning of a next beautiful journey, right? And that's exactly what I was feeling, was this is the ending of the chapter, or not a chapter, a story that we have lived for the past 10 years, and it's no longer our story anymore. It's time to create a new one that is filled with love and genuine just genuine love for one another and trust. And I'm just so happy for you and thankful.
Oh, I feel so blessed. And I know that we would not be where we are today if we had not done the work on ourselves. 100%. And if I had not chosen to go within and really recognize and take responsibility for how I kept drawing the same kind of relationship circumstances, because ultimately that's what I thought I deserved. And so through healing myself, the healing journey is a continuous one.
Oh, always. We are not healed.
It is a continuous journey.
Are not healed.
There's so much generational trauma that is inherited that it just takes self-awareness, and it takes choosing to let go of the attachment to the pain and suffering, and being able to form boundaries and have the self-awareness to recognize when you're in a story and how the story is serving you, good or bad. That without all of that, I wouldn't have been able to receive the healthy, beautiful, amazing relationship that I now get to experience. And not just that, but the relationship that as a whole for all of us, it's really just a beautiful thing. And what we witnessed the weekend of our wedding was just absolute magic on all levels.
There's pure happiness. I feel like there was not a single person who was not genuinely just happy to be there.
Yeah.
And that's really so beautiful. Important, because that's hard to find, not even hard to find, but we would have thought, the old trauma would have taught me, this is bad. Why is everyone happy? But it was like, no, we're deserving, and you're deserving of this. So it's been a long journey.
It has been a long journey. However, it, like all fairy tales, this one has a very happy ending. And I wouldn't do it any other way. I would show up. In the end, I have to accept that things happened as they were supposed to in order for us to get to where we're at today. Because had we not, in my head, when I got divorced, I really thought that within, a year I would be remarried and blending families and doing all of these things. And I remember about 2 years ago, Alyssa and I were having a conversation. It was the anniversary of the 10 years of our divorce. And I was saying, wow, it's been a decade. And here I am, like, oh my gosh. And telling her, I thought that I would have been remarried right away. And the reason that I had that expectation is because that's what we saw.
Yeah.
All of our friends, family
Society.
members, society,
It's a society.
they would get
thing.
divorced and then they would immediately be
But
in
then
this other relationship.
People wonder why they feel so empty.
Right. We've done the work. I mean,
Yeah.
we for the last decade
Or,
have
cheat and keep escaping or drink or drugs. I mean,
right.
People rush, and it's codependency, but
Yeah.
that's
It's trauma bonding.
It's that's a
trauma
whole
bonding.
other episode.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on that.
But no, what did I say to you whenever
You said to me, you go, Mom, I'm just going to be really honest with you.
Sorry.
And I think that you're probably going to be like 50 before you finally find the right guy.
I'm so sorry.
And I remember just going, oh my God, 50? And thinking to myself that almost 20 something years of my life would have passed, without me being able to share all of the love that I truly have to give. And not just to my daughters, but to a male, a male that was worthy and deserving of that love I had to offer.
I'm so sorry I said that, but
don't be sorry.
But hey, I wasn't not necessarily like you're close to 50, but I think
you weren't too far off. Okay.
I think what I was trying to get out of it was to be hopeful.
Yeah.
To be hopeful. That's what I'm gonna tell myself was I think I just wanted you to be hopeful.
Yeah.
I didn't mean it in a negative way.
No, I know. I laugh. I still laugh. But so to all of the listeners who have hung with us through this up and down journey, we really appreciate the love and support and your willingness to hear our story. And we really truly are committed to helping others. And we understand the importance of relationship and having safety and being able to hold the space for one another, no matter how challenging something is that the other has to share with you.
And on a side note, I just want to say this podcast was a very vulnerable thing for me to get on and do. I'm not the type of person to open up very easily. I used to not be the type of person to open up very easily about a lot of the things I've been through, but now I want to share it because I think it's so important. Like young women, men, teenagers, everyone, just anyone out there know that, there's experiences like ours, and then there's, the successes at the end, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I just feel like it's, a good story for people to kind of relate to, or, not even if they can't relate to it, just understand, know that, we're here for you too. I kind of want to put myself out there, and if someone needs anyone to talk to, or maybe a, younger teenage advice, my DMs are always open. I am not private on Instagram, so you can DM me, and that's where I'll get back to you probably the quickest. But I just want everyone to know, like, we are here for you, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're alone.
And to Skrillex, and Plenty of Fish, and
Skrillex,
Corona.
Plenty of Fish, Corona beer.
Thank you so much for all of the lessons that you helped us.
Thank you. Learn. And I do hope that they have found some healing on their own.
Absolutely. We definitely don't wish any ill will. We truly understand that they are damaged individuals whom are truly suffering their own traumas and don't know how to cope any other way than
like many people in the world, though. We want them to heal.
Absolutely.
Be conscious of what, all of this goes back to us realizing where the trauma started and being conscious of how it's told as a story and what we did to, you know, either react or respond to it. And now, you know, reflecting and forgiving, and it creates love. So
Absolutely.
I'm so happy.
Nothing but love.
Yes, I love you.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. And please, 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 if anyone out there needs some support, some guidance, resources, we are more than happy to help support you in any capacity that we can. And Alyssa did the Retrain Your Brain course, and I remember her being so open to receiving that information and understanding now how everything that we experienced in our environment shaped our beliefs. And we continue to work through those daily, have reframing and reshifting those stories.
Thank you, everyone.
And you guys can find Alyssa. Where can the audience find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Alyssa Deranja. And for my younger generation, I do have a TikTok. You can find me on there too. And yeah, that will be it.
And we would love, love, love for you to tell us if there's other things that you would like for us to talk about, share. We'd be more than happy to do this again.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of this woman. She is, seriously, I'm so proud of both of my daughters. Alyssa is just a light. She is just pure light. Her heart is absolutely the most magnificent, beautiful. Anyone who meets her always says, wow, you have an absolutely incredible, incredible daughter. And I am so grateful, because there was a point in my life where I really did think that I was never going to be able to take any kind of credit for the woman that she would eventually become. And to hear her say that I have helped to shape the woman that she is today really brings much joy and so much gratitude to my heart. All right. We love you.
We love you. We're about to have the best mother and daughter date night. We got some snacks and movies, and we're going to end this podcast on a good note.
Absolutely. So thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for us. And we appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. Make sure you leave a review and let me know what you think. I love reading your feedback. Come hang out with me on Instagram at Heather Deranja, and don't forget to take a screenshot that you're listening to the podcast and tag me. I love to share it. See you on the next episode.